What's going on, everybody? Today, hope everyone's having a good week, good weekend. How you doing, Axe? What's going on with you?
What's up, critic, man? Not much, man. Just hanging in there,
Um,
looking at all this craziness happening in the world.
Man, oh man, is it crazy? Hey, let's get right into it, man. Let's get right
Good.
into it. So, real quick for all the listeners out there and people watching, when I say West Point, what comes to mind for you, Axe? What do you think about when you hear West Point?
West Point.
Yep.
That's supposed to be an elite um, university, right? It pumps out some of the military's best officers.
Yep. It does got a long history of generals and everything that serve. So here's something I saw the other day, May 4th, which is what, 2 days ago, as of this recording. Yeah, 2 days ago. And so we have Scott Taylor. So Scott Taylor was a member who sat on the House of Representatives. He's a old Navy SEAL, and
Mhm.
he posts this picture that he gets from, I guess, I'm assuming one of his people in his state. And here we go. Here's some of the new classes that West Point is teaching their officers. We have deconstructing patriotism, exploring postmodernism in the U.S. Army recruitment, which problem amidst the lack of a national narrative, uniform perspectives, evolution of cross-dressing in the military and gender norms. Do my leaders get me? Unpacking the importance of representation in military, which is beyond my mind. Oh my God. And then harder rights, an approach to espouse values and behavior inconsistency. What's your first thoughts in just seeing that, my friend?
So this is a revision of the curriculum, right?
Yeah, or add on to.
An
Yep.
add-on to.
Yeah.
Um, First off, just to address the tweet or the statement that was included into this. This was sent to me. This is the class. I was just reading the tweet at the bottom.
Oh, okay. Sorry. There you
Yeah,
go.
just like this was sent to me. Quite sure China and Russia are not teaching this nonsense to their officers, right? Like that makes you wonder what do we teach our officers and why is this important for our officers? Um, Deconstructing patriotism, exploring postmodernism and U.S. Army recruitment amidst the lack of a national narrative. Man, that almost makes you feel like everything we've been doing was all under the wrong assumptions. You know,
Absolutely.
like we've been doing this wrong the whole time. Okay, and who's making this change? You
I,
know, is
yeah.
this a vote that we're taking that we all agreed to do this? I
Yeah.
don't recall this vote.
And it's crazy. And whoever's obviously, you have the commandant of West Point who'll be in charge, and then there's a civilian counterpart to them, which is probably that civilian counterpart's probably been there 20, 30 years. But like you said, who approved this, right? Who said that this is a good idea to do for classes? Like, I don't get that. I just don't get that at all. Like, how is that a thing? Especially, you want patriots to join your military. Like, that's like, why else join? You know what I mean? Like,
When it comes to deconstructing patriotism, like I want to know what that means, and what's the intent behind it? Like, what are we trying to get out of this? Are we trying to, um, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Not brainwash, but re, just like try to. I guess it is brainwash. You trying to, um, and what is the word?
well, I would say, on the bottom there, it says anti-American woke ideology. If you look in the world right now, just look at America, look at all the protests you're seeing for pro-Hamas in the U.S. Like all these colleges, and as of like we're recording here on Monday, the 6th, they're having these huge protests up in New York in support of Hamas. Now, I don't care what you think about the war between Israel and Hamas, but bro, like these cats that are protesting that are who would ever imagine in a million years that you would have your own citizens protesting for another country,
Mm-hmm.
especially when half those protesters wouldn't even last in that country. Like, they'd be killed. They would immediately be killed. The homosexuals would be thrown off of roofs, and that's not like me just saying that, that's what they do over there. And women would not even be able to talk, nor would they have their face shown. They'd be completely covered head to toe. And it's kind of like, man, what's going on with the country? And you kind of see here's a perfect example of that. Them teaching this to our future officers who are going to be leaders of hundreds, thousands of troops in their future. Like,
is that what deconstructing patriotism means to you when you hear that? Like what they're already trying to do and what they're already doing out there, and what the media is showing and glamorizing is taking down the American flag, other countries' flags, just to show that, hey, I stand for something, right?
yep.
When really they don't know what they stand for. They don't really truly know what they're standing up for when they step on the American flag in that way. And I'm glad there were people there to kind of grab the flag and make sure it's taken care of. But man, yeah, that's deconstructing patriotism. Shit, what did we fight for, man?
Yeah. Like, think about how our country was founded. It was patriotism. Hey, no taxation without representation. Like, that was that was like the whole thing. And think about people can say, a lot of the wars that they've had in the past are, bullshit, but World War I, World War II, come on, that was fighting for like, it's just fucking nuts, man. It just blows my mind.
Look at the very next thing. Uninformed. I'm assuming this is supposed to be. Is this
uniform perspectives?
Uniform perspectives. Okay, so that's, to me, backwards. To me, that goes against everything that we stood for the last 20 years. And you value everyone's perspective. We don't, you know what I'm saying? A uniform perspective, the evolution of cross-dressing. Like, what's a uniform perspective? That's everyone doing the same thing for the same reasons, right?
Absolutely.
So unpacking the importance of representation. So unpacking I'm reading the wrong thing. The evolution of cross-dressing in the military and gender norms.
Which is fucking blows my mind. Like, why are we teaching this at a military officer academy? The evolution of cross-dressing. Like, that does nothing for readiness for your military, nor does it make you a better leader at all. Like, that just blows my mind, man. And gender norms. I mean, there's so many holidays and representation days and months you recognize and all that stuff within the military. Like, the thing that bothers me is the military space has taken a huge leap, especially within the Army, of no gender specific things, right? PT tests, jobs, for instance, combat arms jobs. Those are your jobs that go and fight. They used to be male only. Now they're male and female. So why do I have to make classes now for gender norms? Like, you want us to all be one, train the same way, fight the same way, be treated the same way. Why am I teaching classes on that now? You know what I mean? That kind of it goes against the whole purpose that you did in the first place of breaking down those walls.
Yeah. I kind of have an answer to the previous one. I know we kind of skipped forward a little bit, but
yeah,
an answer to why the evolution of cross-dressing is important. And this is Google, right? So cross-dressing has historically been a way for people to explore their identity and self-expression. It can be a symbol of acceptance, equality, and confidence. It can also challenge the traditional gender norms, promote inclusivity, and help people embrace their individuality.
Okay. What does that mean to you?
To me, that means in the military, we're all about uniformity. We're all about moving as one, being part of a unit, representing each other, representing the nation proudly in the way we dress, in the way we march, in the way we take care of the uniform, the flag, the pride we have, and just being called a veteran. All that comes with being proud of what you do. You strip that away and you let everyone identify and express themselves in their own equal and individual way. Ponytails down, ponytails up, different color hair, guys, girls, he, she, it, they, them. You start muddying those waters, and you start losing a lot of that uniformity and what makes us historically a strong military force. You know, the moment you start perceiving yourself as anything less, that's what becomes reality.
I agree. Because do you think the whole point of you when you join the military and you go through your basic training is to strip you of all that your civilian mindsets and ways you think and stuff
Right.
like that, and to have you get first understand the values of that service you're going to join, and then for you with your teammates to have shared values and they're joint, and that's what carry you forward. Not, hey, I'm this, you're, you know what I mean? Like that's just again, I think that's just counterproductive to the whole thing that you get your soldiers are going to get taught, because the officers are getting taught this, but your soldiers are not getting taught that in basic training. They're getting stripped down of all their civilian stuff. Not physically stripping them down, but like they're
Yeah,
all,
it's
hey,
they tear you down to build you back up into
yeah,
the way that they want to build you back up.
exactly. And of hey, you never leave your teammate behind. Mission always forward. That kind of stuff. And it's like this is just what the fongoo, man. Like I just don't get that shit, man. And secondly, they have loose of cross dressing. Now in the military, you're supposed to know your soldiers, or airmen or Marines or whatever.
Mhm.
But there's certain things they're not going to tell you. And I would think as a leader that if, let's say, you're my troop and I come up to you and I'm like, hey, Axe, hey man, so how's your cross dressing going? You could take that as like a insult and then file a complaint on me. You know what I mean? As a leader. So what would I would never cross that line with you. You know what I'm saying? Like that just doesn't make sense to me. Like that's not a normal thing that just comes up in conversation. Like in my history, I've had soldiers that cross dress. I knew they did, but that was their thing off for work. And at a time they got to be able to detach from work, and they don't need me all up in their business. Because think about how many people want other people, especially their superiors at work, all up in their business. Nobody
Yeah.
does. You don't want that.
But so here I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Okay.
How is I know the answer. I feel stupid just asking. But how is this any different from someone who goes home and decides to dress up like a comic character, like a DC character, or dress up and go to the park and play medieval games, and they're part of this group
Yeah.
that a huge following and
Cosplay and stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
Where
How different is it from that? You know what I
It's
mean?
not. It's not different though. That's the whole thing. It's like people gonna do what they want to do and express themselves how they want to. Like again, would your leader? Hey, I saw you dressed up. I had this. I had a commander, and the reason we knew he was dressed up is we had an alert like 2 o'clock in the morning, and this commander happened to be at a premiere for Lord of the Rings, so he was dressed up. And guess what? He showed up at the base as Gandalf, fully
Oh,
dressed.
that's what's up.
Yeah, that was cool. And like there was no huge discussion on it. None of that shit. It was
But if
like
you would have showed up in drag,
no, I mean, if honestly for us, it would have been like, okay, that's different. But again, we have a shared vision. Hey man, we got alerted. This is what we got to go do. That's what's important right now. Like all the other shit don't matter. Again, like it's your like I'm not the way I look at this, right? Like the cross dressing you're gonna do at home. How many of your leaders talk to you about like, hey, what are you drinking at home? What are you eating at home? What time do you go to bed? What time do you wake up? You know what I mean?
only if you have a problem.
But you know what I'm saying? That's not like a normal conversation, like, hey, what did
Right.
you have for dinner?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, only if you have a problem do they start dabbling
Digging
in your
into that.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think again, I think this is just a pathetic class that they're going to teach to officers. And now these officers are going to come out and think about this and like try to bring that up in unison. It's going to get them nowhere. And really what it's going to do is going to further split their teams up. Because
Oh, for sure.
think of and again, nothing against cross dress and stuff like that, but you would look again. I look at the majority, not the minority, and in these classes, this really looks like they're focusing in the minority, not the majority of who serve. You know what I mean? Which is just, I think it's stupid. It's such a waste of money, such a waste of time. And kids see this now. People can say what they want, but kids might talk to their parents or friends. But most people are like, man, fuck this shit. I'm not doing this. Like, no, thank you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on to the next. Well, what else you got? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Now I was going to say, what do you think about the next one, man? Do my leaders get me? Unpacking the importance of representation in the military. What do you think of that? That one's about, huh?
Unpacking the importance. I mean, everyone wants to be represented, but it's almost like they're pushing this from the start to force everyone to do it one way. But like, man, blacks haven't been represented, Hispanics haven't been represented in the military correctly for a long time, you know? And how many marches and protests did we have to do to get these rules and these things fixed? And these guys are coming out the gate forcing and pushing these changes to when I don't think they've truly thought through the consequence of what they're doing when it comes to retention, when it comes to all the unwritten rules that they're about to have to write because of what happens out in the field
Mm-hmm.
when these situations start happening. This is not normal. You're forcing something that's not a norm, right? You're forcing the change, right? And I don't think we're prepared completely with how to do it the right way. And we're forcing the subject, and it's going to be all reactive because this incident. Now we are going to force this new rule. Oh, this incident happened. Now we're going to backtrack and pull back these regulations allowing these things, and we're gonna you know what I mean? Like it's just we're using humanity as a guinea pig.
Yeah, and the other thing, it's like they're forcing segregation throughout the military right now. Because
Oh,
now, when you're doing this, you're going to segregate your group. You're going to. Back in the day, I mean, at least I know. I'm sure same for you because we've been in forever. Like I don't. My representation is I bleed green. That's I'm the army. I bleed green. There's
right.
now. Granted, there's a whole bunch of unwritten rules within the military. Everybody knows that, right? Certain things you don't say. Like the whole thing back in the day with gays in military. Everyone knew who was gay and who wasn't. It wasn't a big fucking deal to anybody. Hey man, can you do your job? Cool. That's all I care about. Or hey girl, can you do
I
your job?
mean,
Cool.
I mean, that might be your perspective, but somebody else might have a totally different perspective, man.
Absolutely. But I would say the majority though is what I'm talking here, man. The majority of your military, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just using that as an example, not as a thing. But with this right here, I think you're going to segregate because you're going to have a lot of people who are like, I don't believe that bullshit. I believe
Hmm.
in a united front and a united thought, which obviously you're in the military and that's what they're for. Like this is some bullshit. And why do I have to sit in these classes? And then you also have, I've heard, a lot of white soldiers like, hey, why do I have to keep sitting in all these classes of Black history, Hispanic history, gay, this, that, like, how about a class for all of us? You know what I'm saying? Like all of us, because we're all soldiers.
Humanity.
Yeah. Like, another class, fucking waste. I think it's so stupid. You've always had tons of different representation in the military. You've always had tons of different people from different, ethnic backgrounds and cultural backgrounds and all. And I think this is just again, it's going to segregate, and it's very much like society right now. You have to look like, you know, really, if you look at, that kind of goes. Look at our at the first bullet. U.S. recruitment amidst the lack of a national narrative. I mean, we don't have a national narrative right now. There's not united we stand. It's divided we gonna fall. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. And that's what it's been said in the past, and that's why these types of things weren't they weren't even addressed. They were like, no, we're not going to do this. This is why we're not going to do it, and boom, right? And,
Yeah,
and and don't get it twisted. I'm all about moving forward.
absolutely. Yeah,
I'm all about giving everybody what they want, right? Let's do that. Let's make everybody happy. Got it. But the way you go doing it and the way it's being now, this the way it's being done now is not work. It's not going to work
no,
because it's
absolutely.
being forced.
And a lot of people don't realize the military. Sometimes it could be a democracy, but a lot of times it got to be dictatorship because shit has to get done, and that's why you're in the military. You know.
If not, you're going to get freedom at what cost?
Exactly. And then this is the thing I used to just tell my young soldiers, like, if I can't, if I can't get you to do that here back in the rear, when we go deploy forward, like, how can I trust and know you're going to do it there? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I have to know because combat's completely different than being back in the rear, which for those listening and watching, it's being back, just, back at your base, doing your normal, job, whatever it is. But when you're deployed overseas, it's a whole new game. Like there's no room for bullshit. Like you got to be on and you have to know what you're doing, and you have to trust your teammates, your left and right. You can't have this thought process of like, well, I know what they're gonna do with them because they're this color or this gender, or you know what I mean? Like, no, like we're all soldiers. And a thing I used to always tell my guys training them was, hey, bullets, guess what? They don't care color, man. Bullets make you bleed. We all bleed red, bro. We're all going, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
get that shit out of your head. That's not important to the mission. So,
Especially when I've heard it from a couple of different perspectives. Like, oh, drag has always been in the military since going back World War II, right? But when you go back and you look at like, yes, there were handbooks on how to put on drag shows in the military. You had to follow this handbook. You can go to the parachute shop and use equipment from the parachute shop to make your dresses. This was a thing, right? But what was it for? It was for morale boosting. And what did we do during those shows? We made fun of them. We laughed and made fun of cross dressers. It was all comedy. They danced, they did stupid shit, they humped each other. Like, it was comedy. We were essentially degrading it and using it for entertainment, right? That's what was happening. So why think that we're going to go from that type of foundation to a full-on, hey, you're going to accept this as the new norm? Like they forget, 30, 40 years ago. That's the way, the foundation, the way military was.
Yeah, definitely.
Change that shit overnight,
No, absolutely. So we'll move on to the last one. Harder rights, an approach to espoused values and behavior inconsistency, which is just, again, completely against, at least I can speak for the Army, for like Army values. So your espoused values is what you stand for, and it kind of helps guide your decision and actions, right? And basically to define you, and they represent you, who you are. But the military has their own espoused values, right? Of, loyalty, duty, integrity, honor, personal courage, and, shit like that. And this is basically, hey, we're going to kind of change that because we need your behavior to be what we want. But if you go up into the first three bullets, that kind of just changes all those values that they're trying to teach in the first place.
Yeah. So my example in the Air Force of that, it's kind of like your core values, right?
Yeah.
Like in the Air Force, it's integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. To me, you're not putting service before self if you're telling the military that it has to change the way it sees me for me to feel accepted in this institution, in this gang of ours. So when the Air Force is having to be flexible and flex the way it operates to satisfy these norms and create new norms, for what? At what cost, though? Like, what are we losing? Like, why isn't it easy for us to just say, so what? Just let them in, let them do what they got to do, let them have their own shows, let them change all the manuals and rule books, include it into all the new lesson plans, and teach my kids that this is acceptable. Like, why don't we just, for lack of a better word, bend the fuck over? What's it going to cost us?
Exactly. And then the other thing, when funny you mentioned as parents, like, why would you want your kid to go into that? What's, at least back in the day, people, hey man, military do this and that and the other. It's like, wow, now like maybe if I send you to military, you're going to get brainwashed into some of the stuff that we're seeing on the news today at all these high-end colleges. You know what I mean? Like, hey, son, daughter, I don't want you to go do that. Like, absolutely not. No. Mm-hmm. And secondly, the overall picture that I keep going back to is not everyone should be serving in the military. It's like not everyone should be a police officer. Not everyone should be. There's certain jobs that it's our rules, and if you don't like it, don't get in. Like what we were talking about off screen here. Like, yo, get a resume. Start updating that resume. You know what I mean? It's like, no, like this is the way it is. If you don't like it, get out.